Welcome back. After the Sioux Falls city election next month, the city council chamber is going to have 4 fresh faces looking to represent voters and make an impact in the community. One of those candidates, Allison Renville, she's joining us in studio this evening as we continue our Meet the Candidate segment here on Dakota News Now. So Allison, welcome back.
Hello and welcome to Dakota News Now Online. I'm digital producer Donovan Miner. I'm coming to you from the First Alert Now desk. And the Sioux Falls city elections are coming up on Tuesday. Yesterday we went through and watched our Meet the Candidate series for the Sioux Falls School Board. There were 5 candidates. And today we'll be going over Sioux Falls City Council candidates. There are 6 candidates in total that we interviewed, 3 for the at-large seat and 3 for the Northeast seat. We're going to start with the at-large seats. Our first guest we had on a few weeks ago was Allison Renville, and her 2-part interview here will be starting in just one moment.
Welcome back. After the Sioux Falls city election next month, the city council chamber is going to have 4 fresh faces looking to represent voters and make an impact in the community. One of those candidates, Allison Renville, and she's joining us in studio this evening as we continue our Meet the Candidate segment here on Dakota News Now. So Allison, thank you for taking some time to speak with us. Starting with your background, a business owner, you have experience in politics as an activist for victims of domestic violence, murdered and missing Indigenous women. Is there anything in these areas of expertise that are helping to contribute to you running and representing the city of Sioux Falls?
I think the fact that I know a lot of how the system is working and affecting people here in Sioux Falls from actual conversations that I'm having with people and really being affected by a lot of the things. Professionally, you know, I spend a lot of time responding to relatives here in Sioux Falls that are going through whatever it is here that you can think of, anywhere from alcoholism to drug trafficking to human trafficking. And so it's really important for me to keep these things in the forefront of my mind because they affect my people as much as they do.
Has there been, within the current structure of leadership of the city, has there been absence of anything that you think that there's a dire need to correct? Is there anything that's a large elephant in the room that you wish to accomplish?
You know, I really do just look forward to being part of different conversations around certain committees and other initiatives that I'd potentially be able to take up that would that I could add to the conversation without having to go too far into having to, you know, look at the rates or, you know, do more research into all of these numbers and stuff, because a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now, everyone is dealing with or sees on a daily basis. And so when we talk about, you know, women being at least one woman, you know, I found out with the mayor's recent numbers that came out, you know, there's over 1.5 women a day that are assaulted by their domestic partner. And I personally have survived a domestic violence assault. I want to draw attention to the fact that I decided to wear red today. Sioux Falls is very well affected by the epidemic of murdered and missing Indigenous women and feels the heavy effects of domestic violence and sexual assault.
And really quickly before we head to break here, on your campaign site you list 6 platforms: homelessness, child care issues, as well to justice and public safety topics. What are some of the measures that you might take in improving some of these issues?
You know, I think one of the biggest things that I think is important is the fact that you don't have people like me at the table. Obviously, I am a Lakota woman. I'm from Sisseton. I'm Hunkapapa Lakota, and I have spent majority of my life looking at systems on the reservations within the tribal nations that affect me personally. And, you know, I think having that insight of successful programs, federally funded programs, and so on and so forth, that just add that new perspective to a lot of the ways that we deal with things. And so like I said, I really, I hope to be the one that people choose to be part of those conversations.
Allison Renville with us this evening. We'll be taking a quick break. We'll come back and get to learn more about one of the candidates you could be voting for very shortly. Welcome back as we continue our conversation with Sioux Falls City Council candidate Allison Renville here at 5:30. Part of our Meet the Candidate segment over the next few weeks here on Dakota News Now. And Allison, in the last year, Sioux Falls residents have often brought up a lack of transparency within city government. Is there anything that you would immediately take care of to remedy that, or is that something that you think is a prevalent issue right now?
No, and I appreciate that question. You know, in the year 2020, I took over as a public information officer for the Sistinwaptan Oyate, and I spent the pandemic not only fundraising and looking for over $1 million worth of resources that we were able to bring in, but I was able to kind of reestablish what it meant to keep our people informed and keep everyone on the same page. So that is actually something that I really look forward to bringing to the table, because I think it's important for us to stay on the same narrative, but also encourage South Dakota values within the city of Sioux Falls.
Within Sioux Falls and in terms of conveying the ideas of various constituents here within the city, Do you see a middle ground, or do you see you being able to have a voice to kind of relegate maybe ideas in one direction versus another? Do you see yourself as a central ground for that?
Oh yeah, and I really believe in some of the innovative ideas that I've been able to come up with. I mean, even just so much as learning how to redirect our focus and take in a more deeper consideration for someone's mental health, their emotional state, and all the other social issues that end up affecting, their ability to work, their ability to thrive. I think my perspective and my connection to not just my own Native community, but the fact that I am part of so many different other circles throughout the city that are different demographics and other communities in themselves.
If you had a quick summary to ascertain what it is that you bring to the table, why is it the voters would be encouraged to vote for you?
I think it's just really important for people to see me as someone who's just like them. Not only am I a mother, I have survived so many different trials and tribulations throughout my life that have made it possible for me to be here. I have a lot of network opportunities for people, and I like to share those opportunities with folks. And my experience over 20 years of organizing politically throughout Dakota Territory, South Dakota, and the country, I've been able to secure so many different relationships, and really hope to be able to open up that network to the city of Sioux Falls and its residents.
Well, Allison, pleasure to get to meet you here this evening, and also a lot of people here will be considering you for one of their candidates as well, too. A reminder that the Sioux Falls city election is on April 9th, and that is where we will see a lot of more candidates as we discuss and continue this conversation before we get closer to that as well. We'll be right back after this.
All right, that was our two-part interview with City Council candidate Allison Renville. The next candidate that we had on this last Thursday was Jordan Deffenbaugh. He's also running for the at-large seat. Apologies for that. So his two-part interview is starting up here in just a moment. A reminder, if you are watching on Facebook right now, there are links in the comments to our Meet the Candidates page that has all of our videos from this series. So if you missed the school board one yesterday, or if there's a certain person today that you want to see again, or you want to share their video, you can find those over on the Dakota News Now YouTube page. And then we also have a link in the comments to find your polling place for the election on Tuesday, so you know where to go when it comes time. If you aren't watching on Facebook Live, that is sdsos.gov. It's the South Dakota Secretary of State website. So right now we have our two-part interview with City Council candidate Jordan Deffenbaugh.
Welcome back. We are in the other part of this segment here as we are meeting all the candidates that voters will be voting on as the school board and the Sioux Falls City Council elections are getting going. And tonight we're joined by Jordan Deffenbaugh, who is running for an at-large city council seat. We appreciate you joining us today. What was the inspiration? This is the first time for a city or a political office in general. So what was the motivation that struck for you?
I love the city. I love the people who live in it. I love giving back to the community. I love putting my time and energy in improving it. I'm the partnership developer for the BAM Institute, as well as the co-founder of the Sioux Falls Tool Library and a new preservation kitchen at UGM, Union Gospel Mission. And I've already been doing it. I've been already doing the work.
Right.
And I've already been doing a lot of research in our zoning codes and our ordinances. So I'm deeply embedded on the ground firsthand, but I'm also able to step back and see the bigger picture. And I feel like I am the best candidate to take on this specific role as city councilor.
In working hands-on with a lot of our community programs, Union Gospel Mission and whatnot, are there some conversations you're hearing from people that are saying this is something we'd like to see change in Sioux Falls? Is there anything that you're starting to hear rumbling from that?
The big thing I've heard is public transit. And our public transit needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of investment. I mean, honestly, most of my platform is actually pretty conservative. The only thing that I really emphasize in spending more dollars on and more resources is public transit, especially when we consider the fact that we are going to attempt to move DSS out to Dolly Farms. That's three miles away. And we do not have effective public transit. Now, a big thing I want to emphasize with how I look at public transit is like, let's look at the boring ideas, rapid transit, prioritize bus lanes. How do we develop walkable hubs in certain connecting points? I mean, I'm for the new via transfer, where it's basically this sort of Uber-esque transit system. I'm glad that's a piece that we're moving down, but we also need to get back to the basics and just do the simple stuff first, too.
We have a quick second before we head to break here.
Yeah.
Was the current transit in place? Do you think that it was maybe okay before we had this big population growth, or is it something we just need to adapt to this change that we're needing?
We should have been investing in our transit system decades ago. We should have been keeping up with the growth, but we didn't. And now it is an essential piece of infrastructure that we are missing as a city. And we have to remember, we are a city now. We've often talked about how we're a town, like a big town, little city, but we're a city now. 300,000 people this week were identified to live in the metro. We need to get with the program and make those sorts of investments.
Jordan Defmal with us. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back in just a few moments. As we continue our conversation with Sioux Falls City Council candidate Jordan Defenbaugh here at 5:30, we were briefly talking a little bit about the improvements here in terms of, we talked about population growth and accommodating for that, and you told me a little bit off camera, some zoning, the way some zoning issues are set up right now, maybe doesn't allow for the growth that you see that could happen in Sioux Falls. What is it that you'd like to change about that?
Well, there's a concept that the folks at home could look up. It's called missing middle housing. And what it is essentially all across America, we have our cities that are set up in a way to grow and sprawl. But oftentimes, the zoning only allows for, say, single-family residential and, say, 4 to 6-story apartment buildings. And we see that a lot in Sioux Falls. But with missing middle, there's this whole section of housing typologies, housing types that are available to us. And they're actually, we can find them in older neighborhoods in Sioux Falls. So Cathedral District, Whittier, All Saints. And this creates a density. It creates more units. It also makes it actually feasible for small to mid-scale developers to deploy them. We can actually increase the density of our core, particularly along like public transit hubs, like I was talking about, and we can mitigate the challenges of the housing crisis. We need more options, and our zoning codes create the conditions where we don't have them.
I might be able to piggyback this next question a little bit off of that in terms of increasing the availability of that. It certainly has been a state issue in terms of finding childcare and able to find those options for a lot of families within our often mentioned growing community. Within those plans, is there anything that you would institute that might possibly address that, or is that something that maybe a local solution in terms of, before figuring this out in terms of a statewide issue?
I think there's a diverse amount of solutions, and it's starting at all these different levels. And that's a big thing that I think as a city, we need to identify the partnerships to develop in different parts of the city. And it's a geographic problem too. Like, if you're not accessing childcare because you can't drive to childcare, or you can't afford it because your rent is too high, or any of those things, we have to create options for childcare in our neighborhoods. That could be easing regulations or ordinances for specific in-home daycares. That could be finding partnerships with churches or different community centers. That's identifying grants. It's not one person or one group's effort that is going to do it. It's going to take the whole village, the whole city. And I think City Council can engage in the sort of condition creation that is needed for that process.
Jordan Defenbaugh with us this afternoon here, talking a little bit about his campaign and things he'd like to improve here within the city of Sioux Falls. Thank you again for your time.
All right, that was our two-part interview with Jordan Defenbaugh. We have one more at-large city council candidate that we interviewed, and this was on this last Friday, which is Richard Thomason.
And welcome back, everyone. We continue our Meet the Candidates series right here on Dakota News Now. This evening we have some time with Sioux Falls at-large city council candidate Richard Thomason. Very good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
I appreciate it very much.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, what's your background, and why did you decide to run?
Yeah, certainly. So moved to Sioux Falls when I was 2.5, and I like to say 2.5 because it was actually 2.5 on the day. So June 27th of 1994, and graduated Lincoln High School. Spent 4 years outside of the great state of South Dakota. Went to college up at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. Had 3 job offers out of college, one in Chicago, one in Minneapolis, and one here in Sioux Falls, and could not wait to come back here and start my career and really enjoy this city. Served in the legislature for 2 years, enjoyed my time in Pierre, but could think of no better thing to do than come back and serve on the Sioux Falls City Council.
Let's talk about that for a second. That experience that you gained in Pierre, how does that translate to an at-large city council position?
Yeah, so you get that question a lot, especially when you're knocking on doors, and what it translates to is being able to learn how to work with everybody that's at the table. That's the people that are bringing an issue, that's other city councilors, that's the mayor, and just learning to get through the issues together and getting all common sense approaches figured out.
You know, your campaign, if you had to boil it down, what does it stand for? What do you want the people to know? Why do you want them to send you to the city council?
I'm the same person that everybody met when I was 2.5 when I moved to Sioux Falls. And that was the greatest compliment that I got when I got done with the legislature, was I had a dear family friend call me and say, you stayed true to yourself. I'm authentic, I'm a proven leader, and more importantly, I'm going to be accessible to everyone.
Is there a transparency issue involving city government, do you think?
You know, that's a good question that I also get a lot. I think the transparency issue is just when you're getting the information. I think sometimes people get the information a little bit later, whether that's the citizens. But in terms of where I would be at, is I'd be fully transparent as possible and make sure that everyone knows what's going on.
Do you think the city as it is right now is managing growth well, or are there areas that could be improved? Where are you on that?
You know, the growth is our greatest asset, but also one of our greatest weaknesses. And where I'm at with that is we need to make sure that we remember the core neighborhoods and the fact that we have to still drive on Minnesota Avenue to get out the new developments, but also to come downtown. And I want to make sure our roads are good to go, our properties are staying up to standards, and that everyone feels welcomed here in Sioux Falls.
We're going to take a quick break. We're having a conversation this evening with Richard Thomason. He's a candidate for an at-large seat on the Sioux Falls City Council. We'll take a quick break and then we'll be right back here on Dakota News Now. And welcome back as we continue our Meet the Candidates series here on Dakota News Now. Speaking this evening with Sioux Falls at-large City Council candidate Richard Thomason. Again, thank you for being with us.
Oh, enjoying it.
One of your campaign pillars is the idea of limited government. And I'm wondering, how do you pull off a limited government strategy when you're running for a position where you would be part of the government?
Yeah, it's when do you get involved? You know, and you have to ask yourself as a city councilor, do I get involved now? Do I wait to get involved to see if it's something that is worthy of getting involved, or do I not get involved at all? So it's really about assessing each situation on how limited the government should be or not.
I'm trying to figure out how to ask you this question here. Do you feel the city council right now is maybe doing too much?
In terms of?
In terms of limited government, are they sticking their thumbs in too many pies?
No, I think we're good to go. I believe that the city council now and the city councils before us have been doing a good job in terms of working with the mayor and not getting too involved in different issues, but also still kind of keeping their pulse on things.
You're also very focused on the future of the city of Sioux Falls. We were talking in the commercial break about the growth the city has seen most recently. What are you looking at in terms of future growth? What is your concern? What do you see as an opportunity? What drives you on this growth topic?
So, you know, as I said, growth is our biggest strength, and it's also our biggest weakness. And making sure, as we talked about, our traffic flows are good to go. Our developments they flow well, you know, meaning that if you go to a development, you maybe go from single housing to multi-family housing to commercial, and it's not just something that's plopped right down there in the middle. So making sure that we build the correct things in the correct places.
Yeah, this question is not a trap, I promise you,
Okay.
but I'm interested to hear your thoughts about Sioux Falls as a city. Do we need more police officers and firefighters, or are we at a good level, do you think?
I do think that we need more because we're growing, and I have actually met with all the department heads, and I've learned about different things that maybe you don't think about every single day in terms of response times, in terms of how many people can make it to a response. But I do think that we need to continue to grow on our public safety to keep everyone safe in our community.
About 30 seconds left. City elections historically don't have the best turnout rates in the world. Why should people go vote April 9th?
Local elections matter the most. It's decisions that are going to be impacted on your daily life. And one thing I actually want to look into is, can we move the election date? And if we can, how do we get to do that? Because it does matter. It's very important. And if we can move it to at least a primary date, that will be an automatic extra 20% of people that will be coming.
All right, Richard Thomason, he's a candidate for an at-large seat on the Sioux Falls City Council as we Wrap up our Meet the Candidates series here on Dakota News Now. Thank you for the time. Thank you for coming in.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. We're going to take a break in the news at 5.
And just a reminder that you can rewatch all of our Meet the Candidates interviews at dakotanewsnow.com. The story should be right up on the top of the home page or near the top. Has links to every single interview with every candidate that we have done. I think I might have actually been muted there. I just wanted to remind you that Meet the Candidates, you can find all of those segments over on dakotanewsnow.com. That story should be on our homepage, and you can rewatch all of the interviews that we've done over the last couple weeks. So those were our 3 at-large city council candidates. We had Allison Renville, Jordan Deffenbaugh, and Richard Thomason. So now we're going to head on or switch on over to the Northeast city council candidates, and our first one that we had on was David Zokaitis, and his 2-part interview starts now.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We are a few weeks out now from Sioux Falls School Board and City Council elections, and we're introducing you to the candidates vying for your support here on Dakota News Now. This evening, David Zokaitis, who's running for the Northeast District City Council seat, join us in studio. Thank you for coming in.
Good to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You bet. Of course, you're no stranger to the local political scene. You ran for mayor back in 2022. We remember that campaign. Now you're seeking support for a city council election this time around. How are you using that experience specifically to shape this current campaign? What have you learned along the way?
It's so much easier anytime you do things the second go around, because you know what an interview is like, you know what to put on your flyer,
Sure.
your experience with getting your signatures on your petition. It's just a whole lot easier. The first time is practice, second time is for real.
On your campaign website, one of the things you say is that you want to end homelessness and get honest, caring people elected to office here in Sioux Falls. So tell us how you would work with community partners to address those specific issues. How do you think you can get this done?
Well, homelessness, we've kind of figured out, I think the problem with homelessness in Sioux Falls is that we don't accept homeless people for the addicts that they frequently are. We put them in a shelter and expect them to act like reasonable adults the moment they're inside, and that's just not realistic, because typically underlying addiction, there's emotional illness and trauma. So, you know, housing first is great, because nobody's going to do anything until they have a place to stay. But once they're in a shelter, you got to make sure that you can take care of their long-term emotional needs and their recovery. And I think that link is missing in the shelters that we have in Sioux Falls.
Interesting you say the word link. The existing Link Triage Center that works for the community, is that not doing enough? Should it be doing more? Does it need to do more?
The link is about 3 days. It'll take somebody who's drunk off the rocker and get them sober. But really what people need is 2 or 3 years of effective support. And 3 days, you know, it's a start.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near enough for success.
Is there anything that you could do on the city council, do you think, to address the specific issue of affordable housing here in the city?
Oh, yes, there sure is. Affordable housing, we can do a lot with that by changing zoning to increase density and to increase the variety of houses that are being built. A lot of times at city council meetings, I see people put up residential suburban kind of developments. And that's big houses on big lots. Well, that's expensive. That's not going to make affordable housing. We need to go and build more residential traditional houses, which are smaller houses on smaller lots with less parking space. But they're cheaper, and that's the whole point. So I think if we change zoning to encourage or even require more levels of housing and cheaper houses and houses on a grid, because that certainly helps public transit and getting around and doing stuff. Oh yeah, sure, city council can make a big difference in affordable housing by changing zoning and by changing the design of our cities more toward the ancient traditional designs where you had perpendicular streets to aid in navigation and to aid in public transit. And again, mixing up the levels and sizes of houses. Oh, and also integrating work, grocery stores, and residences. You don't need to put this there and that here and this other different parts of town. If you have it all closer together, then you don't need cars so much, and you can reduce your dependence on car infrastructure, and that also lowers the cost.
And more of our conversation with City Council candidate David Zokaitis right after this on Dakota News Now. And continuing our conversation with Sioux Falls City Council candidate David Zokaitis, what's your take on this proposed Riverline district for the downtown area?
It's nice to see the city grow. It's nice to see amenities coming into town. It's nice to appeal to young urban professionals, but I'm kind of leery about too much government funding for construction, because we've had some bad experiences in town before, notably the parking garage that was built even though it was massively overpriced.
Yeah.
So it's probably good for the city, but we need more transparency in the construction, in the bid process, to make sure that we have a good deal for our money.
And that answer leads to my next question. You bring up the issue of transparency. Big topic for you, has been for a couple of years now. How is the process now currently not transparent? What do you want to change?
Okay, as an example, at city council meetings, I put up a big list of questions for the mayor and for his administration about the parking construction, and I never got any answers. So I can't be any more public than that. I've got a PowerPoint, I have these questions, and don't get any response. So I would like the mayor and city council to actually respond to citizen questions. I mean,
And that's not happening right now.
that does not happen. Yeah. You can send email to these people, and most of them don't respond to you. I've tried to meet with the mayor personally and gotten nowhere. So all of that needs to change, and you need good people in government to make those changes. And I'd be even happy to make changes in ordinance or maybe the city charter that say that every attempt at correspondence needs to be answered up to a quarter of your time.
Real quick, I'm sorry, real quick before we go here. The idea of streamlining city operations. What collaborations should be happening within the city right now that aren't, but you'd like to see?
People should be able to talk to anybody about anything. So if there's a problem in city government, then the citizens and the administration and staff should be able to talk to you. I've had a lot of success actually talking to the entry-level staff, the engineers and stuff, because they're sort of people and they still want to get stuff done.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the director level and the mayor himself, then it gets more political and access is more difficult. So I'd like to see that opened up, you know, because these people work for the citizens and they should talk to the citizens because that's part of their job.
And it's something that you would foster if elected?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
If we need to draft an ordinance or a resolution or change the charter, I'm all for that.
City Council candidate David Zakaitis for the City of Sioux Falls joining us on Dakota News Now. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for being here.
You bet. It was nice to talk to you.
Yes.
And we'll be back.
All right, that was Northeast City Council candidate David Zakaitis. Just a reminder before we hop into our next one that if you are watching on Facebook Live right now, you can find a link to all of our interviews from Meet the Candidates over on our YouTube page. If you're watching on any other platform, that's youtube.com. Our channel is Dakota_news_now. We also have in that comment a link to our polling places. So you need to know where to go when it's time to vote. You can head over to that website. For those who aren't on Facebook, it's sdsos.gov, which is the South Dakota Secretary of State website. The next Northeast candidate that we had on our show was Miranda Basie, and her two-part interview here will start right now.
Welcome back. This evening we continue our special segment on Dakota News Now, introducing you to the candidates that are running for Sioux Falls School Board and at City Council for this year. Miranda Basie is joining us in studio today. We appreciate you taking some time to speak with us. You are running for the Northeast District Council seat. To start, can you tell viewers a little bit about your background? You're very familiar with Sioux Falls, but what should we know about you?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Sioux Falls on North Cliff. My dad was Barney from Barney's Auto, and my family owns and operates a mobile home park also off of I-229 in Benson. And so I grew up on the streets of North Cliff. I waited under a billboard across the street from a gas station for the bus stop. And so it's a lot of fun now to be talking about hopefully representing my neighbors in the Northeast after having really intimate experiences growing up in that area.
You have, I guess, a propensity to try to have, not divisive, but bring more people together. For how is it that you hope to do that, and how disparaging is that right now? Is that something that's very obvious within City Council?
You know, I think that politics can get a bad rap in a lot of places, right? And so I think especially at the local level, there's a huge opportunity to talk about community engagement. There's a lot of voter apathy out there right now, and so even not just within the City Council itself, but in our community as a whole, I think asking more questions, more uncomfortable questions, and really having a curious mindset there's a lot of folks that will get into service and kind of have their own plan or their own agenda. You're not going to see me with a really detailed 1, 2, 3 step plan that I'm going to bring to you independently. I'm going to be in the community. I'm going to be asking questions. Just today on various campaign items, I had the opportunity to talk to like 7 different people and kind of crowdsource ideas and perspectives about how we're running the campaign. So that's what you'd be able to expect from me on City Council.
When it comes to growth, some good, some also very uncomfortable. We've been talking about growth here economically and just in terms of population in Sioux Falls. Are there some solutions that you might bring forth in terms of more housing, more rental properties, or is there anything that you see right away in terms of addressing that?
Not all growth is good growth, and so there's strategic and intentional growth of all kinds, and that can go in terms of how we recruit businesses to come to town or the way that we use land development. But I also think zooming out and looking regionally, and that's something that I had the opportunity to do in some of my previous professional endeavors. And the growth is not happening just in Sioux Falls, it's happening in our whole metro. So if we can think collaboratively with folks like the South Dakota Multi-Housing Association and looking at more creative options for maybe how we could repurpose things, that would be a huge help in just kind of bringing different ideas to the table.
And we'll get to hear a little bit more in just a few moments. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back after this. Welcome back as we continue our conversation with Sioux Falls City Council candidate Miranda Bassey here at 5:30. The topic of transparency has come up a time or two within City Council. The City Task Force is meeting involving the Delbridge Museum collection. That wasn't posted until hours before the actual meeting took place. Is there an essential component to that transparency? Is that something that isn't a big deal to you in general in that instance, or is that something you want more to be open out in the future?
My experiences so far as I've been communicating and learning and on the campaign trail, if you will, with city leaders is most of my questions are answered and answered promptly. So I'm personally not experiencing maybe some of those things that some of those folks are talking about. When it comes to the meeting, I wasn't in the room. I didn't know, how those things happened. At the end of the day, we're all human, even as elected officials. And so, I'd like to believe that those things happen. I work in marketing myself, and there's times where you upload the wrong ad and it runs, and you've got to handle that with the client.
Would you say that right now, is there a number 1 or number 2 pressing issue that you think is glaring right now for the city of Sioux Falls that you're hoping we address before it gets too late? Or is there anything that everything's been going well, we just need to continue going in that direction? Is there any way that you would evaluate that?
We've been doing a lot of door knocking and a lot of canvassing in our efforts, and most of the people that I'm talking to are telling me that life is pretty good. And I'm asking them, hey, are there things that you're particularly passionate about that I should know about? Are there things that we should really be digging into? Most people are telling me no, not off the top of their head. Now, in addition to that, there's a lot of conversation, of course, about the child care crisis, as it's been dubbed, housing for sure, but then also when we think about public safety, I think that that's the cornerstone of a lot of things. So I would say that those things are important and they're pressing, but they're also complicated, right? And there's not going to be one silver bullet that's going to fix childcare or one silver bullet that's going to fix the squeeze that we're feeling on housing.
And just we have a few seconds left here in terms of a final remark for voters that are looking to possibly vote for you. What would you say is your number 1 resounding message that you give to them?
It is really, my desire is to pay it forward. Sioux Falls has taken care of me and my family for generations and has afforded us the opportunities that my husband and I have. My husband's a public school teacher, and so we've had the opportunity to get really engaged in the community. And we have a really beautiful thing here in Sioux Falls, and I would love the opportunity to crowdsource perspective, to listen to all ideas, and to help us continue to pay it forward for future generations.
Well, Miranda, thank you again for taking the time to speak with us, and as we get to know you as well too here. We'll be right back with the final check of the forecast.
All right, that was Miranda Bassey, and we have one more candidate who is running in the Northeast District. That is Neil Jeske. He was on our show back on last Monday. After that, we will be wrapping up our stream here. Just one more reminder, to find your polling place, head over to sdsos.gov. And then you can find all of our Meet the Candidates interviews over on dakotanewsnow.com, on your Dakota News Now app, as well as streaming apps such as Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, and then on our YouTube page, which is at Dakota_news_now. So our final candidate is Neil Jeske.
Welcome back. This evening we are continuing our sit-down conversations with candidates running for Sioux Falls School Board and City Council for this year. Neil Jeske is a candidate for the Northeast District City Council seat and joining us in studio to learn more about his campaign. So we appreciate you joining us. What is your motivation for running for City Council?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. My motivation is actually seeing one of your guys' news interview or YouTube about some apartments. We're having some problems in this town. I think it's a continuation. It's been going on about a year or two, and people aren't giving proper living conditions. They're being robbed of their life and liberty. They have kind of drug people and criminal activity in their common areas, and that's one of the reasons I'm running.
Has that been a resounding one that got to you, or are there other issues as well too within the city that you knew was on an itinerary that you wanted to hit up if elected?
Yeah, that's one of my main things, and then after studying that and then the local government a little bit, the transparency, we need more transparency and open government in this town, and then after seeing some salaries with elected positions, it's kind of extreme salaries, so people here in this town are tightening their belts with their family, so I think the government, local government here needs to clean house and tighten their belts as well. So.
But I want to come back to transparency in a second, but first just want to talk about housing and apartments.
Sure.
Is there anything that you've immediately seen from that where you said, that is something that, here's a solution for this, here's something to correct it, where the city can take over and remedy that? Is there something that jumped out to you in that regard?
Well, we're seeing a lot of busted windows, no heat in the winter, and these type of problems. So we might need to as a city councilor, you can do an investigation or inquiry. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to code enforcement. I imagine they're doing their jobs, but something's going on there, and I would just love to help and for the opportunity to resolve these problems, because people, they pay their rent, they fulfill their lease contract, and then they call for help on some things and they don't get any response. So.
And we have a quick minute. I want to go back to the transparency. Is there anything alarming right now with the current state of city government that you immediately want to change in terms of transparency, or something that could be better that you want to rectify?
Well, just two things what we've seen in town just in like the past month with the Dell Bridge Museum and the meeting, there's something there. And then also our representative, Pat Starr, he was asking, they were having a city council meeting about some financial documents, and they weren't giving it to him, and it kind of, the problem continued on for about a month. And so that's something, and then I am for, if we have to release every document publicly or whatever it takes to show transparency, respond to the citizens, and be available.
And we'll take a short break here. We have a couple more questions to ask right after this. And welcome back. Neil Jeske is in studio tonight as we continue meeting our candidates here on Dakota News Now. And on your campaign site, we also kind of saw that you were looking into helping small businesses as well too. Is there a way that you would facilitate that? Is there any way that you think that small businesses need more support and more support within city leadership?
Yeah, I just think something as small as just having a flyer open and available to all, and you can send it to us, and then we'll have a couple questions maybe about what we want to talk about your business, what you want to talk about, how long you've been in business, what your specialties. Then we could use the city cameras to come down and show off whoever wants to participate with the open, transparent, equal opportunity for all. So I think that would be a good start. Otherwise, there's a lot more things we can do together as a community. As far as, I just think something small for the kids to encourage entrepreneurship. Lemonade stand days. Maybe get all the kids excited, build some lemonade stands, have the parents there, and make a big day celebration out of it to encourage kids for entrepreneurship. These are a couple ideas, but I'm definitely for the citizens and the small business in this community.
In terms of small business transparency and looking into other improvements in the city, is there anything else within maybe a top 5 of that list that you wish to address? Is there anything that you think needs drastic change right now within the city that's your top priority?
Yes, just as far as I've lived here about 4 years and my property taxes have not gone down. So as studying the size of our government, we have some positions what might be redundant or we might need to eliminate. As far as that, I've seen some wages and stuff. From my personal experience, when I was in my early 20s, I was a part-time snowplow driver and a garbage man for other city in a suburb of Milwaukee. And when I did part-time snowplow, I made $25 an hour over a decade ago. And here they're paying $22.50. So I think if we can maybe cut some waste at City Hall and human resources and allocate the resources for tax relief and to provide better wages for city workers would provide services in this town, I think that'd be a good step.
And one of the topics we talk about frequently is the growth of Sioux Falls, the need for growth in infrastructure. There's a couple of projects in development right now to help support It's expected to be continued growth. Is there anything that you see as an immediate solution or something that's on your list towards addressing population growth and having more people come here?
Well, I guess part of that would be equal opportunity for all. And then I'd have to study it more, but not all good growth is good growth. But besides that, we have some issues we have to fix. Like we cannot build affordable housing on bad foundation. We have some problems in our neighborhood we need to address first, and then we continue on. But I'm a part of the growth of Sioux Falls. It's been a good community to me. Would love to earn your vote to serve back and give it back because I want to be the citizens champion. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, Neil, thank you. That does it for our time today. Appreciate your time. Again, the chance to get to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
And that does conclude our Meet the Candidates recap. Election Day is on Tuesday in Sioux Falls for both City Council and for School Board. Final reminder, to find your polling place, head over to the South Dakota Secretary of State website, sdsos.com. Tune in to Dakota News Now tonight at 5 and 5:30. Cordell, Lexi, and Zach will have the latest headlines, a forecast, and some sports highlights. Head on over to dakotanewsnow.com or our YouTube page to watch recaps of our Meet the Candidates series. Signing off from the First Alert Now desk, I'm Donovan Miner. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you.